The Appalachian Mountains stretched like the spine of some ancient beast, their peaks cloaked in mist and their valleys swallowed by shadow. Deep within this rugged wilderness lay a forest that few dared to enter and fewer still spoke of. They were experienced hikers, drawn to the thrill of unexplored trails and the beauty of nature untouched by man. Sarah, a 25-year-old photographer with a love for the outdoors, had convinced her friends Mark, a skeptical journalist, Lisa, a bubbly artist, and Tom, a quiet but resourceful engineer, to join her on a weekend trip. They had heard the rumors, of course, but dismissed them as nothing more than campfire tales meant to scare tourists. Locals called it the Forest of Lost Souls, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead was set to blur, where time itself seemed to twist and turn. Legends whispered of spirits trapped among the trees, unable to find peace, their mournful cries carried on the wind. The further they went, the more the forest seemed to close in around them, the trees growing denser, the light dimmer. "We should be close to the clearing now," she said, frowning. "But the trail looks different from what I remember." An unnatural quiet settled over the group, broken only by the occasional snap of a twig or the rustle of leaves. "I can see why you wanted to come here, Sarah. Wait until we reach the clearing. Like eyes on us, but when I turn, there's nothing. The view is supposed to be incredible." The wind picked up, carrying with it faint whispers that seemed to come from all directions. The words were indistinct, like a conversation just out of earshot. Sarah strained to listen, but the voices faded as quickly as they appeared. But to Sarah Mitchell and her 3 friends, the forest was just another adventure. They arrived at the trailhead, just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest floor. The air was crisp, tinged with the scent of pine and damp earth. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, it vanished, leaving them in darkness once more. "Let's just stick together and stay on the trail. We're almost there. Let's just find the clearing and set up camp. We'll be fine." Sarah breathed a sigh of relief. "See, we made it." The trees stood tall and silent, their branches interlocking like skeletal fingers, creating a canopy that blocked out much of the fading light. "There's someone there," he whispered. It was too steady to be fireflies, too deliberate to be a trick of the light. The group exchanged uneasy glances. It was humanoid, but its form seemed to shimmer and distort like a reflection in rippling water. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and its mouth moved as if speaking, though no sound came out. Then, in a blink, it was gone, leaving only the rustling leaves in its wake. As they stepped onto the path, the crunch of leaves beneath their boots was the only sound in the stillness. "It's beautiful," Lisa said, her eyes wide with wonder. "Hey." The forest had shifted, the trees rearranging themselves into an impenetrable wall. "Who are you?" She called out, her voice trembling. They were trapped. "Who are you?" Sarah smiled, adjusting her backpack. Mark, ever the cynic, smirked. "As long as we don't run into any ghosts, I'm good." Tom chuckled, but his eyes darted nervously to the darkening woods. The path grew narrower, the trees pressing in closer, their branches clawing at the hiker's clothes. And then one voice rose above the rest, clear and chilling. "Help us, we're lost." The whispers returned, louder this time, accompanied by the faint sound of footsteps behind them. When the wind died down, the forest was silent once more, but the friends knew they were not alone. Every time they turned, there was nothing but empty forest. The night stretched on, and with it, the realization that they had wandered into a place where the living did not belong. They hiked deeper into the forest, the path winding through thick underbrush and over gnarled roots. After an hour of hiking, Sarah stopped to check her map. Mark peered over her shoulder. "Maybe we took a wrong turn. These woods all look the same." Lisa shivered, pulling her jacket tighter. "It's getting cold, and I feel like we're being watched." Tom nodded, his voice low. I felt it too. Sarah tried to laugh it off. It's just the forest playing tricks. Come on, let's keep moving. But as they continued, the sense of unease grew. Did you hear that? She asked, her heart pounding. Mark shook his head. Probably just the wind in the trees. But Lisa's face had gone pale. No, I heard it too. It sounded like people talking. Tom stopped suddenly, pointing ahead. Look. In the distance, a faint light flickered between the trees, bobbing as if carried by an unseen hand. Maybe it's another hiker, Sarah suggested, though her voice lacked conviction. In this part of the forest, at this hour? Mark replied, doubtful. They watched as the light drew closer, its glow casting eerie shadows on the forest floor. Lisa's voice trembled. I don't like this. Maybe we should turn back. But Sarah shook her head. Reluctantly, they pressed on. Finally, they stumbled into a small clearing, the moonlight filtering through the canopy above. But as they began to set up their tents, Tom froze, his eyes fixed on the far side of the clearing. The others followed his gaze. At the edge of the trees stood a figure, half hidden in shadow. Sarah's blood ran cold. What is that? Mark took a step forward, his voice shaking. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it raised a hand, pointing directly at them. Lisa grabbed Sarah's arm. We need to leave. Now. But as they turned to flee, they realized the path they had come from was no longer there. Panic set in as the whispers grew louder, surrounding them, filling the air with a cacophony of voices. Sarah's heart raced. The response came not as words, but as a sudden gust of wind that swept through the clearing, extinguishing their campfire and plunging them into darkness. They huddled together, their flashlights flickering, casting long shadows that seemed to move of their own accord. The group pressed deeper into the forest, their footsteps crunching against a carpet of brittle leaves. The air hung heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. Twisted branches loomed overhead, clawing at the sky, while faint slivers of moonlight struggled to pierce the suffocating canopy. Sarah pulled her jacket tighter, her breath fogging in the chill. Does anyone else feel like we're being watched? She murmured, her voice barely cutting through the stillness. Tom nodded, his eyes scanning the shadows. It's too quiet. Even the wind feels wrong. At its heart stood a crumbling cabin, its weathered boards sagging under the weight of time. The windows gaped like empty sockets, and the door creaked on rusted hinges, swaying in the wind. Lisa's eyes gleamed with curiosity. We have to check it out. Mark forced a grin, though it didn't reach his eyes. You're all just spooking yourselves. It's a forest, not a haunted house. What's the worst that could happen? It's as the forest traps those who enter, claiming their souls. Mark bolted to the door, peering into the gloom. Nothing, he muttered, but his hand shook. Only the foolish dare to trespass. Her words hung in the air, heavy and ominous, but Lisa wasn't convinced. No, something's off. Listen. She froze, tilting her head. They fanned out, shouting her name, but the trees seemed to mock them, echoing their cries. The path they'd taken had vanished, replaced by a maze of thorns and roots. A piercing scream Lisa's tore through the night, raw with terror. They sprinted toward it, lungs burning, only to stumble into another clearing. She opened to a random page and read aloud, her voice trembling. An owl's mournful hoot mingled with the rustle of leaves, and then a low growl, primal and close. Sarah's flashlight flickered, casting wild shadows. Something's out there, she breathed. But as they stepped outside, Lisa was gone. Lessa, Sarah called, spinning round. The clearing was empty, the forest swallowing her without a trace. Lessa, Sarah stepped closer, relief flooding her until Lessa turned. The trees closed in, the whispers rising to a deafening roar. They were trapped, and the forest was hungry. Her eyes were hollow, glowing with an unnatural light. Her lips parted, and a voice not her own rasped, Welcome to the forest of lost souls. You belong to us now. October 31st, 1923. The forest is awake. The lost souls howl in the night, bound by a curse I cannot escape. I hear them calling my name. A faint rustle slithered through the trees, followed by a whisper soft, indistinct, like voices carried on a dying breeze. The group turned, searching the darkness, but found only swaying branches and endless night. "Let's keep moving," Mark said, though his brow faltered as another twig snapped nearby. After what felt like hours, they stumbled into a clearing. Sarah hesitated. It looks like it could collapse any second. "Come on," Mark urged, already stepping forward. Reluctantly, they followed. The door groaned as they pushed it open, revealing a musty interior cloaked in dust and shadow. Broken furniture littered the floor, a splintered chair, a rusted stove, while cobwebs draped the corners like funeral shrouds. On a rickety table lay a leather-bound diary, its pages brittle and stained. Lisa lifted it, brushing off decades of grime. A chill slithered down their spines. A curse? Tom whispered, "What does that mean?" Lisa flipped to the next entry. A sudden bang erupted outside, shattering the silence. They jumped, hearts racing. "We should go," Sarah said, her voice tight with panic. "She was just here," Tom shouted, his face pale. Night deepened and the forest awoke. In the distance, a figure flickered between the trees, tall, shadowy, its edges blurred. "Did you see that?" she gasped. Mark nodded, his bravado gone. "We need to move, now." They ran, branches clawing at their clothes, but the forest twisted around them, disorienting and relentless. There she stood, bathed in moonlight, her skin ghostly pale. Sarah screamed as Lisa's form shimmered, fading into mist. The clearing felt like a trap, the air thick with dread as Sarah, Mark, and Tom stood frozen, their hearts pounding in unison. Lisa, or what had been Lisa, had vanished into the mist, leaving behind only the echo of her chilling words. "You belong to us now." The forest seemed to tighten its grip, the trees leaning in as if to listen, their branches like skeletal fingers ready to snatch them away. Every direction looked the same endless rows of gnarled trunks and tangled undergrowth. Mark spun in a circle, his breath ragged. "It's like the forest is alive. It's changing around us." Sarah's voice trembled as she whispered, "We have to find a way out, now." They stumbled toward it, the light growing brighter until they saw its source. An old man, his face weathered like tree bark, his eyes milky white. He wore tattered clothes, and his lantern cast a sickly glow. But the path they had come from was gone, swallowed by the forest's shifting maze. Tom, usually the calm one, was pale, his hands shaking. "We need to stay together. If we split up, we're done for." Roots tripped them, branches clawed at their skin, and the whispers grew louder, a cacophony of lost voices pleading for release. Then, through the gloom, a faint light flickered a lantern, bobbing in the distance. They linked arms, moving as one, but the forest toyed with them. "The forest feeds on souls. It's cursed, you see." "That's insane." Deep in the forest lies the ritual site where the curse began. If you can destroy the heart of the curse, the souls will be freed, and so will you. There has to be another way. Long ago, a dark ritual bound the spirits here, trapping them in eternal torment. To leave, you must offer it something in return. Oh, no one escapes the forest of lost souls. The forest seemed to resist, the ground shifting beneath their feet, but the guide moved with unnatural ease, his lantern cutting through the darkness. After what felt like hours, they reached a grove unlike any they'd seen. Moss-covered stones stood in a perfect circle, their surfaces etched with arcane symbols that pulsed with a faint, sickly light. You must burn it, but the forest will fight back. At the center, a gnarled tree rose, its bark blackened and oozing a dark sap. The tree at the center began to wither, its branches curling inward. The old man's lantern dimmed, and he turned to them with a weary smile. "You've done it. The curse is broken." With a final, deafening shriek, the creature dissolved into mist, and the tree crumbled to ash. "But I can show you the way to break its hold if you be willing to pay the price. The path will open for you. But remember, the forest never truly forgets." Tom grabbed a fallen branch, swinging it like a club, but the creature swatted him aside with ease. Dawn's light crept over the horizon as they emerged from the forest's edge, battered but alive. Behind them, the woods stood silent, a faint whisper on the wind, the only remnant of the night's horrors. "Look," Sarah pointed, hope sparking in her chest. Then it was gone, lost to the shadows. They felt warm, alive. "Help me," she cried. Mark and Tom staggered to their feet, joining her. Together, they pressed their hands against the stones, willing the curse to break. "Who are you?" Mark demanded, his voice sharp with fear. The old man's lips curled into a toothless smile. "A guide of sorts." From the shadows emerged a mass of writhing darkness, its form ever-shifting, eyes like burning coals. It was the forest's guardian, the embodiment of the curse. "I've been here longer than I can remember. The forest, it keeps me." Sarah stepped closer, desperate. "Can you help us escape?" She remembered the symbols on the stones, the way they pulsed with energy. "The ritual," she shouted. "We have to reverse it." His smile faded. "Escape?" Tom's eyes narrowed. "What price?" The old man's gaze drifted to the shadows. A chill slithered down Sarah's spine. "Offer what?" "A soul," he rasped. "One of yours." Mark scoffed, though his voice wavered. The old man's eyes gleamed. "There is another way, but it's dangerous." Sarah's heart raced. "Then take us there." The old man nodded, turning to lead them through the twisting paths. "This is it," the old man whispered, "the heart of the curse." Tom approached the tree, his hand hovering over the bark. "How do we destroy it?" The guide's voice was grave. Before they could act, the ground trembled, and a roar echoed through the trees. "You dare challenge me?" It bellowed, its voice 1,000 whispers fused into one. Sarah's breath caught, but she steeled herself. "We're ending this." Mark fumbled for his lighter, his hands shaking as he struck a flame. But the entity lunged, a tendril of shadow knocking him to the ground. Sarah's mind raced. They needed more than fire. She scrambled to the nearest stone, tracing the symbols with her fingers. The entity howled, its form flickering as the symbols glowed brighter. Silence fell, heavy and profound. The forest seemed to exhale, the oppressive weight lifting. Sarah's legs buckled with relief. "Can we leave now?" He nodded. They followed him back through the woods, the trees parting as if in surrender. As they drove away, Sarah glanced back. For a moment, she thought she saw Lisa's face among the trees, smiling sadly. They had escaped the forest of lost souls, but a part of them would always remain.